do not have any witnesses as at yet, and they're prolonging the case. We do not want them to prolong the case because the case has been prolonged already. It hasn't been listened to for over 2 months now. So we're still waiting for the judgment of the case.
Lastly, right-wing politicians across Europe have been celebrating the election of Karol Nawrocki as Poland's new president. Nawrocki, who came first by narrow margin, is a Eurosceptic and expected to continue his predecessor's practice of blocking the government's liberal reforms. The EU Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, says the EU would continue to cooperate with Poland. The BBC's Adam Easton.
He'll be much more pushy in terms of his relationship with Brussels, in terms of insisting on Poland following what he believes it's in his national interests. He doesn't want to cede any additional powers to Brussels. He'll be very tough on migration, but there again, the Prime Minister Donald Tusk has been very tough on migration, and that's becoming the European mainstream anyway. But certainly a more combative relationship with Brussels is to be expected under President Nawrocki.
Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Novak Djokovic sets up a French Open quarterfinal with Alexander Zverev. This after easing past Cameron Norrie in straight sets last night, while Sri Lanka will host matches at this year's Women's World Cup. This is part of the ongoing arrangements surrounding fixtures involving India as well as Pakistan. Details of these and other stories coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
And you know who helps us makes those mornings better is the team that's behind the scenes. You see Peter and Asanda on the screens, but it takes a village. And that behind the scenes team is Hlengiwe Mabaso, Joey Lechodi and Pumutso Ramagaza. They are the producers. Francis Masina is the technical producer. On social media is Talent Butelezi. News is Onele Ntsinzi. On sports is Musubudi Makura. And economics by Chanduko Ligege. Let's take a look at our Africa Roundup. This is what we do after the news every day on Africa Rise and Shine to get you up to date with some stories that have been making headlines in and around our continent and also seeing what we can expect in terms of developments in this new day. We start with South Africa, where the corruption trial of former South African President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Thales resumes today at Pietermaritzburg High Court. Judge Nkosinathi Chili will consider acquittal requests from both parties, citing key witness deaths and compromised cross-examination rights. They face charges related to the 1999 multi-billion rand arms deal. Nonhlakanipho Magwaza has more.
Pierre Moynot and Alain Setard were Thales South Africa's directors in the 1990s and early 2000s, respectively. Moynot died in early 2021 at the age of 76, while Setard passed away the following year, aged 74. Thales has argued that Moynot and Setard are intricately linked to the state's case, that Thales, through Zuma's financial advisor Shabir Sheikh, allegedly reached an agreement with Zuma in 2000 to pay him an annual bribe. In return, Zuma was to protect Thales in the investigation into alleged irregularities in the arms deal, where Thales secured a contract to provide the weapon systems for the new corvettes. Thales' legal team has argued that they cannot challenge state witnesses without the input from Moynot and Setard on the racketeering charges.
Now, Zambia's Vice President Mutale Nalumango has announced that the country is set to sign the World Trade Organization's Fisheries Subsidy Agreement, and that's a significant step towards promoting ocean sustainability. The announcement followed her meeting with the WTO Director General, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, at her office in Geneva in Switzerland.
The issues of subsidies, particularly in agriculture, looking at subsidies the way they are applied now, I think everybody cries, LDCs cry. how do we move on? How do we graduate? So it has been a short, impactful meeting. I have taken note of what she has said, and indeed we pray that we will implement some of those. But I've also committed to you that we are definitely signing into the instrument on fisheries subsidies agreement. We are done.
The third Namibia Oil and Gas Conference kicked off on Monday in Windhoek, aiming to position Namibia as an industry leader and deliver benefits to its people. Margaret Gustavo of Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board.
We cannot afford, as a country, we cannot afford to remain a passive host to upstream activity. We must proactively identify, structure, and promote viable investment projects across the supply chain from areas in which Namibians can participate. We are currently developing, as an organization, as NIPDB, we are currently developing sector profiles and investment memoranda across critical oil and gas-linked value chains.
And finally, South African artist Philip Matlako from Kimberley is travelling to the Far East this week for a cultural exhibition exchange. He will also showcase his work in China and at the China Africa Economic and Trade Expo, which is starting on June the 12th in Wanhan Province. The event will feature artists from across Africa as well as around the world.
The exhibition is all about cultural exchange, the trade between Africa and the Chinese, and also the world at large. So I'll be participating in the exhibition, showcasing my work, my talent to the world out there. All over Africa and even the world at large are going to attend. So for me, it's very important to also mingle, to share some ideas and to showcase my work of art on the same platform with the world, so that when I come back, the experience that I've gained that side must also come and share here with our people here in South Africa.
That's how we come to the end of this segment of the Africa Roundup. Coming up will be a zoom into the East Africa region in terms of what are the stories there that have made headlines. And that conversation will be spearheaded by Peter. Stay with us.
Channel Africa, your voice, your sound, and your home. Stay logged right here.
Hey guys, question. Have you thought about what happens between 9 o'clock until midday, Saturday and Sunday? Well, it's me. Those that know me call me the fun police, and I'm that girl, that voice on your radio. My name is Pule Mulebati. I'm all about the finer things in life. Where to go, what to wear, who to see, and ultimately what to do. We aspire to bring you the best in travel, entertainment, with a dash or maybe a dose of laughter. And then of course we switch things up a bit when we look at technology. I love what's happening with AI, because you blink, something new pops up. So the challenge is constantly there. I'm learning every single time on the show. So catch me every single Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. until 12 midday Central African Time, Baba.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, we took a look at what's been happening right across the continent, but right now we focus our attention on the East Africa region, where a range of stories there have been making headlines, from the chilling reports of torture in Tanzania to political tensions and security developments across the region. And to help us unpack all of these stories and explore their broader implications, we're now joined by one of our regular commentators, a Kenyan journalist and founder of the Association of Grassroots Journalists. Good morning to you, Dennis Beru.
Good morning. How are you, Peter?
Fiti sana, habari yako?
Salama sana. Sauboma.
Well done. Okay. A lot of things happening in East Africa at the moment. Let's begin, though, with this Very disturbing story about Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Otehe, who shared harrowing accounts of being tortured whilst in Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Peter. It has been over a week since the two top activists from Kenya and Uganda were forcefully detained, and they were now deported back to their countries in unclear circumstances. And in a joint press conference yesterday with the members of the Fourth Estate, of course, that was really a very chilling moment from the two activists, Boniface Mwangi and the activist from Uganda, that is Agatha Atuaire, who said that they were beaten and sexually assaulted by the Tanzanian security officers in their custody. Mwangi and Atuaire's allegations at a joint press conference here in Nairobi yesterday. Remember, the two had been separated, or rather, they had a different a conversation with the members of the media separately, but they decided to have a joint a statement yesterday. And remember, the two had traveled to Tanzania on 19th to appear in court on 19th of May for the opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who is now facing treason related charges. And remember, Boniface Mwangi, as per what he told the members of the press yesterday, he was arrested or forcefully evicted from his hotel room, and they interrogated him by torturing him. This is by the security officers from Tanzania, and later on he was taken back to Kenya at the border between Kenya and Tanzania, that is Oro. And what he told the members of the press, that, you know, how he was sexually violated and to a point even broke down, same to Agatha Atuaire. So being stripped naked and hung upside down and being beaten on his feet. And remember, the two are still waiting to see whether the Tanzanian authorities will have to take action on the police officers who did this to them. And they still want to see whether there will be action from the Tanzanian authorities on the said police officers. And Atuaire's allegation that she was raped, that's a very serious allegation. And so far, no one has talked anything about, you know, what happened to the two top activists from Kenya and Uganda.
So has there been an official response by the authorities, either denying or explaining what happened to these two?
Of course, there are no response or comment from the Tanzanian authorities on the allegations or on rape allegations, because the pressure is still mounting on the Tanzanian authorities to come out and refute these claims. But so far, we haven't seen. And I remember, if you can see on social media how the two were tortured, you can see the feats of Agatha Atuaire and the feats of Boniface Mwangi. They are actually, we have the bruises. And so we are still waiting to see whether Tanzanian authorities will have to respond to these allegations.
So, Tanzanian authorities under fire. At the same time, though, the parliament there has awarded President Samia Suluhu Hassan a special honorary recognition. What's the basis of this award, and how's it being received locally and globally, regionally, perhaps?
Yeah, the Tanzanians member of parliament on Saturday, they honored President Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan with this award recognizing her exemplary leadership in promoting inclusive development and national progress. Remember, this is coming at a time when President Mama Samia Suluhu has been criticized for trying to infringe on the rights of activists in Tanzania. And remember, this is also at a time when Tanzania is heading into election, and also it is also a time when the main opposition leader Tundu Lissu has been banned from participating in the upcoming general election. And remember, the word that was presented in the capital of Dodoma by the Speaker of Parliament, Tulia Ackson, who praised Samia for the transformative leadership, according to the statement that was read by the Directorate of Presidential Communication. Peter, we also need to remember that the Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan will be seeking for re-election for the first time. Remember, he just took over from the late John Pombe Magufuli. So key political players from Kenya and Tanzania are saying that, this is just a way of trying to make sure that Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan gets support from the people of Tanzania so that he can get easy election during the October general election. And of course, he also thanked the members of parliament and telling them that, it is their time to serve their constituents rightfully, and making sure that the development that she promised the people of Tanzania is actually being seen at the constituency level.
And then we come to Kenya, where a young software engineer developer has been arrested for creating a tool which allows citizens to oppose the controversial finance bill. Can you explain the context behind this arrest and the public outcry that followed?
Thank you so much, Peter. This is a young lady. She's a mother, Rose Njeri. She's also an activist, and she just did what any other Kenyan or any other a person from a different country will do, because trying to educate Kenyans on the finance bill 2025-2026. And I remember the software engineer or developer, Rose Njeri, was arrested because she just came up with a development on how young Kenyans, or rather Kenyans, can access and see what has been proposed in the finance bill. And remember, she was arrested last week on Friday, and in a very long holiday. That means that she will stay in custody for more than 48 hours, and as per our laws and what Constitution says, that no one should be detained for more than 24 hours before being brought to court. And remember, this finance bill is coming at a point where last year a time like this, there were mass protests that broke out when government tried to bring or proposed high taxes, forcing President William Ruto to withdraw the finance bill 2024. And remember this year's finance bill, which also outlined the intent to raise the income. And during the last year's demos, over 50 people, young people, were killed, and scores were abducted in the security crackdown that basically the government really wanted to make sure that the protest comes to an end. I remember the Law Society of Kenya President Faith Odhiambo in one of the interviews with the international media house said that Jerry's arrest and detention was the recurrence of the dictatorship by President William Ruto. And yesterday and on Sunday, activists went to Pangani police station where Njeri is being detained, and they wanted her to be released, but there were no comments from the police officers, or rather the officer in charge of the police station where Rose is being detained. And remember, Peter, members of Kenyans, a budget will be read in a few days, and what Njeri was trying to do basically is try to tell Kenyans that this is how the finance bill 2025 looks like, but according to her lawyers, there are no offense that she has committed, and they demand her release. I remember today she will be brought into court for charges against as it is said that it is a cybercrime related charges. So we will be waiting and see whether she will be brought to court today or not. But from authorities, they have not commented on why she has been detained from last week, Friday, until today, Tuesday.
Okay, and very briefly, South Sudan, the United States has issued a strong warning about escalating conflict there. Do we know what's behind this latest warning? Have there been some flashpoints of concern in South Sudan?
Yes, Peter, it is so sad. A young nation, South Sudan, has been in conflict throughout 2025, and acting U.S. alternative representative to the United Nations, that is John Kelly, confirmed that U.S. endorsement of the sanction. Remember, the United Nations has had the sanctions on the embargo, where they feel that the arms that are being brought to the country, they are being used to kill innocent civilian. And U.S. Commenting on the UN Security Council session that happened 3 days ago, where members voted to extend the sanction against South Sudan. And remember, so many innocent lives have been lost due to the gun violence that we've been seeing, and armed conflict that we've been seeing between the Blue Nile militia and the military in South Sudan. And the arms embargo remains necessary, according to John Kelly, because this weapon has been used to kill innocent people. And the Security Council decision follows a separate spurt of violence that we've seen in South Sudan. Remember, in March 2025, a deadly attack was launched by the White Nile militia in Nasir County, where the United Nations personnel were among the people who were affected.
Okay. Sadly, we've run out of time. There's always so much to cover, not enough time to cover it all. But Dennis, Asante Sana, thanks always for giving us a comprehensive look at what's happening in your region. Kwaheri.
Asante Sana. Bye-bye.
All right, so that's one of our regular commentators there, journalist Dennis Beru, who's also the founder of the Association of Grassroots Journalists Kenya, speaking to us about some of the news events that have been playing out in East Africa. Well, let's catch you up with your news headlines as we say good morning once again to Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. A Kenyan activist has accused the authorities in Tanzania of abducting him and inflicting sexual torture and violence before he was deported back to Kenya. An Al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group has claimed responsibility for a deadly attack on a military base in Mali on Sunday that left over 30 soldiers dead. And Russia has rejected a Ukrainian demand for an unconditional 3-month ceasefire at the second round of direct talks held in Istanbul yesterday. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
Now let's get a full sports bulletin as we say hello to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. We'll start here. So Banyana will face off with Zambia in their final Tri-Nation series following a 3-2 win against Botswana. Now, kickoff for this game is at 3 p.m. Central African Time at the Lucas Master P.C. Moribe Stadium in Attridgeville in Pretoria. That's, of course, the capital city of the country later on today. So the Tri-Nation series is in preparation for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament, with Banyana getting off to a good start. Less than about 2 months before the tournament is scheduled for the 5th until the 26th of July. Dr. Desiree Ellis's team played to a 5-goal thriller against Botswana, winning 3-2 just last week Wednesday, also at the same venue. The tournament in Morocco was supposed to have been played last year, but then postponed to this year because it was clashing with the Olympic Games in Paris. Banyana have been fixtured in Group C against Ghana, Mali as well as Tanzania for their WAFCON title defense. In tennis news now, Novak Djokovic ended Cameron Norrie's encouraging French Open run with a straight sets victory over the Brit to reach the quarterfinals of the second Grand Slam of the year. So Djokovic bidding for a standalone record, which is 25 Grand Slam singles titles, beat Norrie 6-2, 6-3, 6-2. Now Norrie, playing in his last round of 16 at Roland Garros for the first time, was looking for another scalp in Paris after a stunning victory in the first round over 11-seeded player Daniil Medvedev. However, the world number 81 never seriously looked like causing an upset against the 38-year-old legend. 6th seed Djokovic will now face 3rd seed Alexander Zverev in the next round, having lost to the German in January in the Australian Open semi-finals after suffering a hamstring injury. Meanwhile, Djokovic is pleased with his performance.
I think I played solid. I always expect myself to play better, but I think, considering the opponent's form as well and the last 16 round and the occasion, I think it was a very good match. I mean, from my side, a very solid performance, straight set win again. So I'm pleased with the way things are going, and obviously the matches only get tougher. So I look forward to the next challenge.
On to cricket news now. Proteas pace spearhead Kagiso Rabada says he's ready to face old foes Australia in the World Test Championship final at Lord's next week. Now, the once-off 5-day clash could be a defining moment for the country's red ball cricket at the international level, having yet to win the championship since its inception in 2019. Rabada, who had been at the centre of a controversy in the past few weeks over a positive cocaine test, says he's now fully focused on the game and ready to play.
I feel good. I'm ready. I'm not focused on the result, just focused on playing. My body feels good, my mind feels good. I'm ready to play, and we're ready to play. We don't get told, we get told who to play. Yeah? So I think we deserve to be there, and I'm excited to see what Australia can bring to us.
Right, we'll stay with cricket news. Sri Lanka will host matches at this year's Women's World Cup as part of the ongoing arrangements surrounding fixtures involving India as well as Pakistan. So India's refusal to travel to Pakistan for the Men's Championship trophy earlier on this year prompted the International Cricket Council, also known as the ICC, to introduce neutral venues to tournaments hosted by either nation. So as part of the plans announced in December, neither country will travel to the other for an ICC event. The Sri Lankan city of Colombo will join Indian cities Bengaluru, Guwahati, as well as Ndoro in staging the Women's World Cup, which will run from the 30th of September until the 2nd of November. Colombo will host Pakistan's 7 group games, including against India, as well as England. It will also host the semi-final as well as the final if Pakistan make it that far. Bengaluru will stage the opening match involving India and the final if Pakistan are not involved. The full list of fixtures for the 8-team tournament is still to be announced. Australia are the defending World Cup champions, having beaten England in the final of the previous tournament in New Zealand, delayed until 2022 because of the global COVID-19 pandemic. So one potential problem, though, with the logistical switch could be the weather, with October 1 being wetter months of the year in Sri Lanka, and India as well as Pakistan were not playing each other outside of major tournaments even before the conflict between the two nations last month. Now, the cricketing tension between the two countries escalated over the Champions Trophy, even though Pakistan travelled to India for the Men's 50 World Cup in 2023. India did not make a reciprocal journey earlier on this year. So as part of the ICC arrangements, India played their matches in Dubai, going on to win the trophy after playing every fixture at the same venue. In May, amid cross-border military strikes between the two nations, both the Indian Premier League as well as the Pakistan Super League was suspended before resuming. The delayed IPL final will be played on Tuesday. That's, of course, today. It also remains to be seen whether the government of either country will allow their team to take part in this fixture against each other. It's 6:38 a.m. Central African Time. That's a wrap of your sports news this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa at Play with NATO and ETO chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. In 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our talent. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the Police Federation, they are identifying young talent every year within the national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Right, it's time now to find out what's been happening in the world of business, commerce, industry, and at the Business News Desk this morning. Good morning, Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa. Exclusive to Channel Africa.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. A Malian court has adjourned to Thursday a hearing on whether to put Barrick Mining Lolo's Kokoto Gold Complex under provisional administration. Granting the request would represent a major escalation of a dispute between the West African country and the Canadian miner after operations at the complex were suspended in January in a dispute over taxes and ownership. Barrick Mining, previously called Barrick Gold, and Mali's military-led government have been at odds since 2023 over the implementation of a new mining code that raises taxes and gives Mali's government a greater share in the gold mines. In southern Africa, Botswana will cut its 2025 economic growth forecast to almost zero due to a prolonged downturn in the global diamond industry, with the budget deficit also seen widening due to reduced diamond revenue. Botswana is the world's leading producer of diamonds by value, and its economy largely depends on diamond exports, which normally contribute around 30% of national revenues and 75% of foreign exchange receipts. In the 2025 budget announced in February, Finance Minister Ndaba Haulati had projected 3.3% growth this year based on an expected rebound in the diamond market. Economists expect the South African economy to have recorded sluggish growth for the first quarter of 2025 with a reading of around 0%. This comes after South Africa's economy expanded by 0.6% in the final quarter last year, helping avoid a recession. Stats SA will release the figures today, and recent data from key sectors like mining, manufacturing and electricity production has shown signs of a struggle, with agriculture tipped to be the star performer. Standard Bank Group Head of South Africa Macroeconomic Research, Dr. Elna Moolman, says the poor performance can be attributed to uncertainty during the period under review.
And this uncertainty is, of course, twofold. On the one hand, ongoing uncertainty around US trade policy and tariff changes that could have a material impact on global growth. And then at the same time, significant uncertainty around South Africa's budget in February and March this year that threatened to derail the government of national unity.
Still in South Africa, Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the poor performance of state-owned enterprises was due to political interference. Mashatile has warned that this creates a toxic environment that hinders good governance and discourages professional integrity. Speaking at a high-level roundtable, he said institutional instability, poor accountability and blurred lines between policy and implementation are eroding public trust, scaring off investors and damaging the country's global reputation.
Political interference in administrative decision across government and state-owned enterprises, particularly appointments, procurement, and financial management, creates a precarious environment, making even our most qualified professionals hesitant to serve.
Microsoft founder Bill Gates says that most of his fortune will be spent on improving health and education services in Africa over the next 20 years. Speaking in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, he also urged Africa's young innovators to think about how to build artificial intelligence to improve healthcare on the continent. Gates announced that last month that he would give away 99% of his vast fortune, which he expects to reach $200 billion by 2045. by when his foundation planned to end its operations. Now let's have a look at financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 583. In Botswana, 13 pula 26. In Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 28. Zambia 26 kwacha 65. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 70. Russia 78 rubles 65. India 85 rupee 40. China 7 yuan 20. South Africa 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,362. Platinum at $1,064 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil, $64.85 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
The G20 in the Premier Forum for Global Economic Cooperation and Global Governance on important issues affecting the world. It is widely regarded as a vehicle for promoting effective multilateral cooperation as it brings together the world's leading economies to ensure global economic stability and sustainable growth for all nations. This year's gathering in South Africa marks the first time an African country hosts the prestigious meeting. So that what I just read is our G20 fact for this Tuesday.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
All right, let's take a look at this story now, and it's all about tobacco. And we start with South Africa's Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla, who delivered a keynote address at the World No Tobacco Day stakeholder engagement session on Monday, convened as part of ongoing efforts by the government to highlight tobacco control issues emanating from the legislative development process of the Tobacco Control Bill. Now, one of the issues that came out from the session is the billion-dollar tobacco industry has now found a way to attract young and the youth and children by enticing them with a variety of flavored products which are with attractive packaging and labeling. Sisi Sehalo has more on the story for us.
Tobacco is responsible for over 8 million deaths each year, including more than 1 million from second-hand smoking exposure. This is according to the World Health Organization, WHO. The World Body was one of the organizations attending the event organized by South Africa's Health Department. Shinaz El-Halabi is WHO country representative. She urged everyone in the room to equally fight the powerful tobacco industry.
We are not fighting a fading enemy. We are up against a well-funded, strategic, and relentless industry. The intelligence so far says that tobacco and nicotine industry spends over $1 million every hour globally on advertising, much of it directed at youth. They rely on flavors, powerful packaging, influencers, and digital campaigns to disguise addiction as something fashionable and fun. But behind the glossy ads is a harsh truth. They're not selling products, they're selling disease, dependence, and death. The good news is that we are not powerless. We have science, we have evidence, and we have the truth. Also importantly, we have a global commitment, the FCTC. 183 countries, including South Africa, are parties to the FCTC.
South Africa's Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Joe Phaahla, says the country perpetuates addiction for profit. He says even though the industry does contribute to the economy, the health consequences far outweighs the economic benefits.
As the health department, we are committed to breaking this cycle. You're all aware of the fact that we're currently having the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill in Parliament, which is a critical step to regulate all tobacco and nicotine products comprehensively, because we came to the realization that indeed all these new products were not covered under the currently existing Tobacco Act. Just to remind you in terms of what that bill caters for, plain packaging is covered within that bill. So we want to make sure that we can introduce plain packaging, follow on the countries which have already taken the step. I'm happy that also on the African continent we can learn from some of the countries mentioned.
Young people and learners are equally worried about this problem, which is detrimental to their health and even fatal. They're enticed with flavors and attractive labeling. For young children, they use the labeling of cartoons. One of the trends that has developed among adolescents and youth is vaping. 15-year-old Gemma Daniel, one of the dangers of vaping.
A recent study I'm sure you all are aware of shows that 1 in 3 teens are admitted to trying vaping. The number is rising. If we don't take action now, the long-term health risks, lung diseases, cardiovascular issues, and addiction won't be theoretical, they'll be personal. The Tobacco Control Bill has been sitting for years. You and I both know that every second delayed is a life taken. Today we're not just asking, we are demanding. To the respected members of Parliament and the Department of Health, and to every adult responsible for the safety of children in this country, we are saying, let's stop guarding our industry's profits and instead guard our health. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Today's
All participants spoke in one voice that urgent action is needed to fight back the industry. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Right, let's take a look at this.
The case of a South African woman who was found killed after going out on a date highlights the growth of crimes targeting women in South Africa. The South African Police Service, or SAPS, has confirmed it is investigating a syndicate targeting women at malls across several provinces. These cases, along with an increase of cases of kidnappings, are seeing a significant rise in the country's economic hub, the Gauteng province. Timakadzo Leshoro filed this report.
The scourge of violence meted against women continues unabated in a country that has one of the highest violent crime rates in the world. Police say the killing of Olerato Mongale, who was brutally killed after going on a date with a man and her body discovered in Lombardy West in Johannesburg, may not be an isolated case. Police spokesperson Brigadier Athlenda Mate expands.
We had a similar case in Brakpan on the 20th of April, where a vigilant member of the South African Police Service actually picked up this suspicious-looking VW Polo on the side of the road. And upon further investigation, he then found that a woman was kidnapped. And he detained 2 suspects, Bongani Mtimkulu, Pilani Makanya, on a charge of kidnapping and robbery. On the 22nd of April, they appeared before the Brakpan Magistrate Court, and on the 26th, they got bail.
She says police are now investigating a syndicate that is targeting women in malls and shopping centers for the sole purpose of robbing them.
We are uncovering a syndicate that is targeting women. So they are targeting them using the same modus operandi. They are proposing to them, getting into, your relationships, flirting with them, chatting and so on, until such a time when these women agree to meet with them. So they would target them in malls, shopping malls, and so on, and stores and so on. And they would go for a woman who looks independent, who looks like, they have it all together. and they would target you, and so that's the modus operandi in various provinces.
Mate says more people are coming forward with information.
We've been receiving calls as far as Northern Cape, the Free State. The goal now is to find these killers and to save more lives, because we don't want a situation where we pick up another dead body of a woman.
This comes as the number of kidnapping cases rose in the first quarter of this year. Kidnappings increased by 6.8% year-on-year from 4,279 in the first 3 months of 2024 to 4,571, equating 51 abductions per day. A large part of these crimes were recorded in the Gauteng province. Half of Johannesburg's police stations are in the top 30 nationwide for reported kidnappings. Lizette Lancaster, project manager at the Crime and Justice Information and Analysis Hub at the Institute for Security Studies, says the latest police statistics on increased kidnappings are concerning.
We have seen scams where the so-called romance scams before. We have seen types of similar kidnappings before. I'm just thinking of the so-called grinder gang that targeted University of Johannesburg students, I think last year, the year before, through that app, where they were also held for ransom. So it's not a new scam or scheme, but we are seeing the use of technology being more and more used, because this is how especially young people go about their lives. So the use of technology in getting victims are becoming more prevalent.
Lancaster says while the kidnapping team within the SAPS is effective in dealing with the cases that do get to them, there are delays in getting cases going at the initial stage when a case is being reported.
But what we do see is when cases do get to the kidnapping units, that their success rates are quite high. But of course, when we start looking at nationally, about 51 kidnappings a day just reported to the police, there's no ways that the police can mobilize their resources to deal with all 51. And therein lies the problem. So we are not necessarily seeing these cases being investigated and tracked and traced the way they should be, just because of the sheer volume of these cases, the differing nature of these cases. And then, of course, we also know when we look at the case of Ndoro last week that the culprits were already out on bail for similar cases. And therein lies another problem where once people are apprehended, they are arrested, it doesn't mean that they will be locked away and not released on bail by the courts. That is something that I think there needs to be more sort of strengthening around, because for serious violent crimes, if it is in the public interest, these people should be not granted bail.
For Channel Africa News in Johannesburg, I'm Dimakazo Leshoro.
All right. Well, we have a lot coming up in the next hour of Africa Rise and Shine here on Channel Africa. We'll be looking at the Craddock 4. That's a story in South Africa that happened some time back, and seeing developments in terms of that one. Proceedings that have begun in the reopening of the inquest into the deaths of that story and that Craddock 4. We also look at the Khayelitsha barbershop incident, as well as the murder of a scientist, Dorcas Lekhanyane's stories in terms of a group in South Africa called Action Society's Action Centre. They are a civil society organization in the country, and it's a year after these tragic events have happened, and they want to know what's going on in terms of justice and what hasn't been achieved. So we'll be catching up on those. I guess we're talking crime in the next hour.
Yeah, and also a theme that's starting to be seen in a few countries across the continent now, where doctors, health staff in general, underpaid by far and away is the biggest problem that we have. particularly in the public sector. And so doctors in Mozambique, Maputo Central Hospital, have begun a indefinite strike in the country. And needless to say, when doctors go on strike, there is always sadly a fear that this could affect the provision of healthcare. We've seen this in Zimbabwe, we've seen this play out in Kenya, we've seen this play out in Nigeria as well. In fact, sadly, part of the problem is that most of these health professionals are ending up in the West, in Europe, North America, you name it, partly because we just don't pay them well enough.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into this next hour now as we make our way to our first bulletin for this next hour, firstly with Onele Nsinsi, and then we'll have sports headlines with Musibudi Makura. Remember, you can find us on our social media platforms. Our handles are at Channel Africa 1.
Yeah, you are listening to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective, broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's 7 o'clock Central Africa time, and here's your news with Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. A Kenyan activist has accused the authorities in Tanzania of abducting him and inflicting sexual torture and violence before they deported him back to Kenya. Speaking to the media, Boniface Mwangi gave a tearful account of repeated abuse by security forces in Dar es Salaam last month.
Some guy came who said he was from the state office or state security, and he started beating me up. I was being beaten at the presence of my lawyers and Agatha. He started calling me saying that I'm an inmate, I'm coming to destroy their country, and I'm a problem, they're going to teach me a lesson. And then he said that we're under arrest.
Militants linked to Al-Qaeda say they've attacked the Malian army in the city of Timbuktu. The extremist group says it has been shelling Malian army bases in the city, including the military airport. More than 400 soldiers have repeatedly been killed by insurgents since the start of May in bases in towns in Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. The BBC's Simon Ponsford.
It's the latest sign of collapsing security in Mali and the wider Sahel region. Militants say they've targeted Malian soldiers in Timbuktu. Residents have reported hearing gunfire and explosions. The historic city, one of the UN's World Heritage Sites, has been under siege in recent years. In 2012, it was captured by Tuareg fighters. French forces eventually drove them out. But violence in Mali and neighbouring countries has kept on rising, and millions of people have been displaced.
South Africa's Umkhonto weSizwe Party's political party's bid to revive its efforts to nullify the 2024 May polls has been postponed until further notice. The leave to appeal application was set to be heard in the Electoral Court sitting in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg today. However, the MK Party filed an application for postponement of proceedings indefinitely. Kenny Mapanga reports.
This is to afford the MK Party the opportunity to launch an appeal against the May 2025 Electoral Court order dismissing the MK's application for the discovery of documents from the Electoral Commission of South Africa. These are documents which the MKP believes are necessary for the adjudication of their main application. Their third bid aimed at invalidating the landmark 2024 national and provincial election results.
Crime expert in South Africa, Mike Boyes, has called on the South African Police Service to prioritise petty crimes. According to Boyes, authorities' failure to deal with petty offences has resulted in perpetrators becoming hardened criminals. This comes as the country faces escalating crime rates, with violent crimes reaching alarming levels. Boyes has attributed the surge in crime to systematic failure in law enforcement agencies, which include a lack of expertise, resources and motivation to tackle crime. Boyes explains.
You need detectives to handle all the small cases as well, the stealing of the cell phone, the handbag. And it needs to be not, just going to police station and making a case and getting the CAS number and claiming your insurance. It needs to be investigated. Yeah. If you start stealing just petty stuff like clothes, then the next thing you'll steal is the electronics in the house. The next thing is the car. And then you'll get involved in cash in transit or gangs or drug trafficking. So crime begets crime. It will always grow. You need absolute zero tolerance, and you need police to do it.
And lastly, Russia has rejected a Ukrainian demand for an unconditional 3-month ceasefire at the second round of direct talks held in Istanbul yesterday. Russia's chief negotiators said it had instead proposed a 2 to 3 day partial truce. The two sides have agreed to swap more prisoners of war. Ukraine is calling for a meeting this month between President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Vladimir Putin, and possibly attended by US President Donald Trump. The BBC's Hugo Pachega.
What the Ukrainians have been saying is that, look, Russia is not really interested in pausing the conflict. It's not really interested in ending the war. The Russians have actually intensified their airstrikes on Ukraine in recent weeks. The Ukrainian officials are also saying that Russia is indicating that it is planning a summer offensive to perhaps try to seize more Ukrainian territories.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nzinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news, the Sawa Banyana will face off with Zambia in their final Tri-Nation series in preparation for the WAFCON tournament in Morocco in July, while French wild card Louis Basson shocks number 3 Jessica Pegula at Roland Garros. Details of these and other stories at 7:30.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live. 5 days a week. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Proceedings have begun in the reopened inquest into the deaths of the South African anti-apartheid activists known as the Cradock Four. Nearly 4 decades after the freedom fighters were killed by the apartheid security branch, President Cyril Ramaphosa has decided to reopen an inquest into their deaths. The families of Matthew Goniwe, Fort Qalata, Sicelo Mhlauli and Sparrow Mkhonto say that they're still searching for truth and accountability. Sipho Ngumbe filed this report.
This marks the third inquest into the brutal 1985 murders of Matthew Goniwe, Fort Qalata, Sicelo Mhlauli and Sparrow Mkhonto. The first, held during apartheid, and the second in 1993, both failed to hold anyone accountable. Earlier this year, the families joined more than 24 others in launching a legal case against the state, accusing government of failing to investigate and prosecute apartheid-era crimes following the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Fort Qalata's son, Lukhanyo Qalata, says he is happy that they are one day closer to justice.
Well, I think we're all feeling quite relieved that we are able to be here today. We were here in September last year, and obviously the matter was then postponed for 9 months, but we're very pleased to have been able to come back to court today and for the inquest to eventually start. Yes, we know that it will happen almost in 2 parts. There's our part as the families, where we will give evidence, and then once the legal or the financial matters are sorted out for some of the alleged perpetrators, then we'll probably then come back and hear their sides of the story.
The Justice Ministry says there has been no deliberate attempt by the state to delay justice in apartheid-era cases. Minister Mameloko Kubai says the state has supported multiple inquests and prosecutions in recent years, and that a presidential commission of inquiry will determine whether anyone in government deliberately stalled these cases.
There hasn't been a deliberate action to stop or to delay the inquest. You'd note that even now the president has opened and appointed a commission of inquiry to be able to look at those, and that commission of inquiry will deal with the issues. If there's anyone, then that person will be identified by the commission of inquiry and why that has been done. I think let's allow for the Commission of Inquiry to determine. From where we are sitting as the state, there hasn't been any deliberate delays in prosecuting or even bringing the cases that relate to apartheid crimes into court.
Judge Tami Beshe is expected to lead a series of inspections in Loco with the court on Tuesday as evidence in the Cradock 4 inquest. The court will travel through Cradock, beginning with a visit of the home of Matthew Goniwe and a visit to the Garden of Remembrance, a memorial of struggle martyrs, including the Cradock 4. I'm Sisipo Ngumbe with SABC News in Gqeberha.
Okay, so that's a disturbing story there, taking us back literally 40 years ago when the brutal murder of these 4 activists, Matthew Goniwe, Fort Galata, Sicelo Mhlauli, Sparrow Mkhonto, and these deaths shocked the nation at the time, and they came to symbolize a lot of what was happening in terms of resistance and the apartheid security and how it dealt with dissent at the time. There have been 2 inquests actually since those deaths. The first one I think was in 1987. Understandably, during the apartheid era, that would not have brought much in terms of accountability. There was a second inquest in 1994, and again that one failed to deliver accountability. So questions being raised, of course, particularly with the second one, which happened during the democratic dispensation of South Africa, why that one failed to deliver justice and accountability. And then what has provoked President Ramaphosa to have a third bite at the cherry here, third inquest. And we'll get trying hopefully to get a member of the family to speak to us, because this can only be a very difficult time for them, not having closure on this story. So what we're trying to do now is to reach out to the family member and hear firsthand from them just how difficult it has been for them over these decades. We're going to take a break, and after that we'll have more, but watching these stories in particular.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Shande la Croix.
Mara ya kwanza kabisa uliingia studio ulikuwa ni mwaka gani?
Ya, nakumbuka mara kwanza nimeingia studio hapa South Africa.
Vizuri sana.
Ilikuwa ni mwaka wa 2016-17 kama sisahau.
Swali kidogo la kizushi hivi hapo Durban watu wanafahamu kama wewe ni mwanamuziki?
Ya, hapa Durban watu wengi wananifahamu kwamba mimi ni msanii ambaye nafanya vyema kwenye mambo ya muziki.
Okay, vizuri sana. Hongera sana kwa hilo. Naam, tuzungumzie sasa albamu yako ambayo unapanga kuitoa hivi karibuni. Albamu unatoa lini?
Yeah, albamu itakuwa available, itakuwa tayari next week Saturday, itakuwa tayari.
Albamu inaenda na ngoma ngapi?
Albamu inaenda na muziki 17.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
The Pan-African magazine that spotlights the diplomatic missions of African nations within Africa and the diaspora, Afri-Diplomat, is set to host Women of Africa Descent in Global Diplomacy in Abuja, Nigeria next month. The event will serve as conversational convergence and platform for formal recognition of selected honorees of the Power List 50 Women of African Descent in Global Diplomacy. Tuto Ngobeni has the story.
The Women of African Descent in Global Diplomacy Summit will be held at Fraser Suits Abuja in Nigeria under the theme Deepening Inclusive Diplomacy. The summit is organized by Afri-Diplomat, a Pan-African magazine that spotlights the diplomatic missions of African nations within Africa and the diaspora. The summit, which is an advancement of its Women in Diplomacy edition, recently released with Power List 50 Women in Global Diplomacy. Soko Deji Ajomali Megward, Editor-in-chief of AfriDiplomat says the summit is about the role these women play.
So basically, the platform is for conversations and it is also for recognition. And we hope to achieve diversity, inclusion, and recognition of women's role in diplomatic ventures. So basically, that's the purpose of the summit.
The event will serve as conversational convergence and a platform for formal recognition of the selected honorees of Power List 50 Women of African Descent in Global Diplomacy. Some of the honorees include Nigerians, Ambassador Judith Sefi Atta, first female permanent secretary of the Ministries of Education and Foreign Affairs, lifetime envoy of UNESCO, and first minister of Women Affairs Bianca Odomogi Ojoku, among others. While Ajomali Mcword says 5 women diplomats from South Africa will also be honored, including the former United Nations Under Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and former African Union Chairperson, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, among others.
There are 50 of them that would be formally recognized during the summit come 5th of July in Abuja next month. And we have on the list five South African women who have paid their dues and extra and are still paying it. In no particular order, there is Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, there is Naledi Pandor, former Foreign Minister of South Africa, there is Lerato Mataboge, African Union Commissioner for Infrastructure and Energy. There is Nkosazana Clarice Dlamini-Zuma, the first female African Union chairperson. And of course, there is Lindiwe Sisulu, a 4-time minister, including Minister for International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa.
Ajomali Mcword says they will be discussing the attributes of women diplomats in the world of diplomacy and what makes them stand out as women diplomats.
Basically, around that theme or under that theme, we would be discussing topics that concerns the attributes of feminine attributes that are most needed in the world of diplomacy. What makes a woman special as a diplomat? Why does the world of diplomacy need more women? Why do we need more women diplomats? What difference would they make in the world of international relations and cooperation, in international trade, in trade relations, in humanitarian causes, in advocacy? What difference would they make? These are some of the conversation we'll be having during the summit.
The organizers of this event say they are concerned that there are too few women in the world of diplomacy and feel this needs to be changed through this platform. For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongo Beni in Johannesburg.
An al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group, Jama'a Nusrat-ul-Islam wal-al-Muslimin, or JNIM, claimed responsibility for a deadly attack on a military base in Mali on Sunday, killing over 30 soldiers. The group also targeted a military airstrip and Russian mercenaries in Timbuktu on Monday, causing heavy gunfire and explosions. Since early May, JNIM has reportedly killed over 400 soldiers across Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. Despite Russian support, regional forces struggled to contain the violence. Mali-based analyst Dr. Zumara Diarra joins us to discuss the implications of this escalation. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Diarra, on this Tuesday. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me this morning.
Great. Let's start first in terms of what this scale and coordination of the JNIM's recent attacks suggest about the evolving strategy when it comes to the Sahel region.
I would like to remind you that a terrorist group are multiplying the complex attacks against the military camp, particularly in central and north Mali. Most recently in the Ulkesi-Douanzane region last Sunday, and in Timbuktu yesterday. These are complex attacks involving attempts or infiltration into military camp. This demonstrates a certain determination and coordination on the part of the terrorist group. I would like to stress that this is not a phase one. It also raises the question of how this terrorist group manages to arm itself so heavily and train so as to be able to stand up to the Sahel station. This question needs to be asked in my point of view.
Is Russian military support proving effective against jihadist threats in Mali and the wider region, in your view?
Malian government would be better placed to answer this question. Nevertheless, it is worth noting that the Malian army has long resisted and continue to resist. A few years ago, for instance, we watched helpless as entire military camp were destroyed on a regular basis. Today, the Malian army is resisting. Tombouctou is proof of this. The terrorists try, but apparently couldn't do it, in my point of view.
The recent attacks, or this separate attack, is reported to have been targeting Timbuktu Airport specifically. And how true is this, first of all? And what is the significance of JNIM targeting urban centers and foreign forces?
This is not a new strategy or method for JNIM. They have already attacked the military camp in Kati, near Bamako, the gendarmerie school in Bamako, a camp, a military camp in the town of Sebari in the Mopti region, so on. Their aim is to destroy military targets. The biggest of which are also in the major cities such as Kati, Bamako, Sebari, and Tombouctou.
The base that was seized by JNIM militants is also near the Burkina Faso border. Any word from the neighboring country and fellow Alliance of Sahel states member?
Exactly. I think the countries of Sahelian Alliance of Sahelian State, AES, must strengthen the joint force. They recently set up to fight a terrorist group effectively. I think there are on the right targets.
Is there still panic among the residents in the area who had to run for cover? Even homes were locked in terms of them trying to be safe from the attacks, or has calm now returned to the city of Timbuktu?
According to the army headquarters declaration, the situation is in control, and the new measurement has been taken to fight again effectively, or to prevent this terrorist group to come back to Tombouctou town.
Mali's army has said that the situation is under control and that 13 jihadists had been killed. What immediate steps should the Sahelian governments on ECOWAS take to stabilize the region?
I think we cannot talk about ECOWAS because the three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, aren't anymore in the ECOWAS organization. So there are in the new organization that we say that we call the Alliance of Sahel State. So the three countries have set up recently what that we say the force, the joint force. So without international aid. So I think it's very important for them to organize themselves, to coordinate in terms of intelligence, etc., material effort, to fight again effectively against a terrorist group.
So coordination or regional solidarity is not what's going to solve this problem, but each party for themselves and focusing on what it is that they aim to do. Well, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Diarra.
You're welcome.
Dr. Zumara Diarra from Mali, providing insight into the recent surge of violence in the Sahel region. Stay with us on Africa Rise and Shine.
In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, experts, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
In Mozambique now, over 200 doctors, we believe, at the Maputo Central Hospital, one of the country's largest public health facilities, have embarked on an indefinite strike. And the doctors began their protest on Sunday, suspending all duties beyond their regular shifts, including night and weekend work. To find out a little bit more about what is at the heart of this strike and what the situation is on the ground at the moment, we're now joined by our correspondent in Mozambique, Milton Malulek. Milton, good to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with why the doctors are on strike.
Good morning, Peter. Good morning, Channel Africa listeners. Answering your question, I will say that this is the culmination of long waiting for the doctors in the negotiations that actually they started not actually with this new government, but with the government of Filipe Nyusi. And it's not something new. They've been actually asking for increase in their salaries, also the changes in their work conditions, because there's a lack of medicines, equipment in some departments. And also they are actually joining the strike that started 2 months ago from the health practitioners that actually they embarked also on strike 2 months ago. So the doctors now they are joining in, which means that all health professionals, all of them, they actually on strike from now on. They only working from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then they are not taking overtime. They are not also working on weekends, which means that this hospital has a lot of demand because it's the biggest one. Even the private clinics, when they can't diagnose some health issues, they send them to that hospital because it's well equipped. So with this strike, and all of the people who are sick from all country, when this is a very complicated disease, they have to fly or being transferred to this hospital. With that strike now, which means that there are people who can die for not having doctors and have the other health team working or being around to assist.
Do we know what the authorities have said? Have they responded at all to the strike and the demands being put forward by these health practitioners?
All the time what the government does when there's this kind of situations, they can negotiate, make promises, but at the end they don't respond to those demands. To say that it's not for the first time that we are having this strike. Last year we had, I don't know how many times, a year before as well, and now we are having the same situation. When the government will see that the health sector is collapsing again, what they will do, they will just go and sit and have this kind of discussions, make demands, and actually respond in some kind of demands that will make the doctors actually to go back again, and then they won't respond, and we'll see the same situation. So is a cycle that we see that is keeping on repeating the same situation all the past years, especially from the last term of President Filipe Nyusi up to now.
Are there any discussions, negotiations currently underway between the health practitioners and the government?
Well, they started actually that round of negotiations, but they didn't reach an agreement because the government is actually threatening, we can say, because those who don't have the permanent contract, they don't have that permanent contract. They are not permanent. So what they say is like they won't renew their work if they embark or if they join the strike. And those who actually who are there on striking, they can be actually threatened of being sidelined or actually put away from the system. So which means that these threats and others, actually even death threats, they can receive if they come they actually in front of the strike. So only now is you find that the doctors only their organizations or the spokesperson is the one speaking and not others. And what happened is the government tries, or actually when it comes and talk about it, they minimize and they take the blame to the doctors. And the doctors now are saying that we are tired of being blamed because they're saying that we made actually we swear like we will be there to help and save people, but doesn't mean that we work under poor conditions because they don't have some equipments like gloves to protect themselves. They'll find sometimes in the emergency sector that they don't have those means. So that's and sometimes they don't have medications. They don't have a lot of supplies to use. Even in that hospital, there were crises a month ago of food, not having food actually for sick people. So those are the conditions whereby the doctors and the health practitioners actually are facing, not only in that hospital, but across the country.
All right, Milton, we're going to have to leave it there. But as always, thank you so much for your updates. Muito obrigado. Adeus.
De nada, adeus, Peter. Have a good one.
All right, that's Milton Malulek, one of our correspondents there in Mozambique, talking to us about this health sector strike. First it was the nurses, and now the doctors have joined in. And the working conditions, sadly, a story that's played out so often across the continent. It's time for your news headlines. Good morning, Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. A Kenyan activist has accused the authorities in Tanzania of abducting him and inflicting sexual torture and violence before being deported back to Kenya. South Africa's Umkhonto Sizwe Party's political party has bid to revive its efforts to nullify the 2024 May polls has been postponed until further notice. The leave to appeals application was set to be heard in the electoral court sitting in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg today. And Russia has rejected the Ukrainian demand for an unconditional 3-month ceasefire at the second round of direct talks held in Istanbul. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
And now let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. Here's Musubudi Makura with our details.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Very good morning from the sports desk. Let's start with tennis news. So the world number 361, Louis Boisson, pulled off the biggest shock of this year's French Open with a stunning fourth round victory against third seed Jessica Pegula of the USA. The French player given a wild card into the main draw after tearing an ACL in the knee just last year, came through 3-6, 6-4 and 6-4 against the US runner-up. Boisson is making her debut in the main draw of a Grand Slam and has never played an opponent ranked in the world's top 50 before this week. Now, the 22-year-old had to starve off 4 break points as she served for a match at 5-4 in the third set before sealing a victory with a thumping forehand winner. This is what she had to say after that win.
Yeah, from the beginning I trust in myself, but for sure when she won the first set was a little bit down for me. But when I came back and won the second set, I start to really think about it. But I also stay in my gameplay and don't try to think a lot about it.
Novak Djokovic, meanwhile, ended Cameron Norrie's encouraging French Open a run with a straight-set victory over the Brit to reach the quarterfinals. Djokovic, bidding for a standalone record 25th Grand Slam singles title, beat Norrie 6-2, 6-3 and 6-2. Norrie, playing in the last 16 at Roland Garros for the first time in his career, was looking for another scalp in Paris after stunning 11th-seeded player Daniil Medvedev in the first round just last week. However, the world number 81 never surprisingly or seriously looked like he was going to cause an upset against the 38-year-old Novak Djokovic. 6th seed Djokovic will now face 3rd seed Alexander Zverev next, having lost to the German in January at the Australian Open semi-finals after suffering a hamstring injury. Djokovic is pleased with his performance.
I think I played solid. I always expect myself to play better. But I think, considering the opponent's form as well and the last 16 round and the occasion, I think it was a very good match. I mean, from my side, a very solid performance, straight set win again. So I'm pleased with the way things are going, and obviously the matches only get tougher. So I look forward to the next challenge.
On to cricket news now. Sri Lanka will host matches at this year's Women's World Cup as part of the ongoing arrangements surrounding fixtures involving India as well as Pakistan. So India's refusal to travel to Pakistan for the Men's Champions Trophy earlier on in the year prompted the International Cricket Council, the ICC, to introduce neutral venues to tournaments hosted by either nation. So as part of the plans announced in December, neither country will travel to the other for an ICC event. The Sri Lankan city of Colombo will join Indian cities Bengaluru, Guwahati as well as Ndoro in staging the Women's World Cup, which runs from the 30th of September until the 2nd of November. Colombo will host Pakistan's 7 group games, including against India as well as Pakistan. It will also host a semi-final as well as a final if Pakistan make it that far. Bengaluru will then stage the opening match involving India and the final if Pakistan is not involved. The full list of fixtures of the 8-team tournament is still to be announced, while Australia are the defending World Cup champions, having beaten England in the final of the previous tournament in New Zealand, delayed until 2022 because of the global COVID-19 pandemic. While one potential problem with the logistical switch could be the weather, with October one of the wetter months of the year in Sri Lanka. India as well as Pakistan were not playing each other outside of major tournaments even before the conflict between the two nations last month. The cricketing tension between the two countries escalated over the Champions Trophy, and even though Pakistan travelled to India for the Men's 50 World Cup in 2023, India did not make a reciprocal journey earlier on this year. As part of the ICC arrangements, India played their matches in Dubai, going on to win the trophy after playing every other fixture at the same venue. In May, amid cross-border military strikes between the two nations, both the Indian Premier League League as well as the Pakistan Super League were suspended before resuming. The delayed IPL final will be played later on today. It remains to be seen whether the government of either country will allow their team to take part in the fixture against each other. And finally, in football news, Banyana will face off with Zambia for the final match of the Tri-Nations Series following their 3-2 win over Botswana just last weekend. The kickoff for today's match is at 3 p.m. Central African Time at the Lucas Masterpieces Moribe Stadium in South Africa's Pretoria, capital city Pretoria. So the Tri-Nations Series is in preparation for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament, with Banyana getting off to a good start less than 2 months before the tournament is scheduled between the 5th as well as the 26th of July. Dr. Desiree Ellis' team played a 5-goal thriller against Botswana, winning 3-2 last Wednesday at the Lucas Masterpieces Moribe Stadium. The tournament in Morocco was supposed to be played just last year, but then was postponed by CAF to this year because it was clashing with the Olympic Games in Paris, France. Banyana are in Group C at the Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournament. Will face off with Ghana, Mali as well as Tanzania. Well, that is a wrap from the sports desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, our email address is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
And only on Channel Africa will you get to the kind of coverage that you get in terms of business and news from across the continent. And at the desk this morning, we say good morning to Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. A Malian court has adjourned to Thursday a hearing on whether to put Barrick Mining's Lolo Gonkoto Gold Complex under provisional administration. Granting the request would represent a major escalation of a dispute between the West African country and the Canadian miner after operations at the complex were suspended in January in a dispute over taxes and ownership. Barrick Mining, previously called Barrick Gold, and Mali's military-led government have been at odds since 2023 over the implementation of a new mining code that raises tax and gives Mali's government a greater share in the gold mines. Botswana will cut its 2025 economic growth forecast to almost zero due to a prolonged downturn in the global diamond industry, with the budget deficit also seen widening due to reduced diamond revenue. Botswana is the world's leading producer of diamonds by value, and its economy largely depends on diamond exports, which normally contribute around 30% of national revenues and 75% of foreign exchange receipts. In the 2025 budget announced in February, Finance Minister Ndaba Haulati had projected 3.3% growth this year based on an expected rebound in the diamond market. Economists expect the South African economy to have recorded sluggish growth for the first quarter of 2025 with a reading of around 0%. This comes after South Africa's economy expanded by 0.6% in the final quarter of last year, helping avoid a recession. Stats SA will release the figures today, and recent data from key sectors like mining, manufacturing and electricity production has shown signs of a struggle, with agriculture tipped to be the star performer. Standard Bank Group Head of South Africa Macroeconomic Research, Dr. Elna Moolman, says the poor performance can be attributed to uncertainty during the period under review.
And this uncertainty is, of course, twofold. On the one hand, ongoing uncertainty around US trade policy and tariff changes that could have a material impact on global growth. And then at the same time, significant uncertainty around South Africa's budget in February and March this year that threatened to derail the government of national unity.
South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the poor performance of state-owned enterprises was due to political interference. Mashatile has warned that this creates a toxic environment that hinders good governance and discourages professional integrity. Speaking at a high-level roundtable, he said institutional instability, poor accountability and blurred lines between policy and implementation are eroding public trust, scaring off investors and damaging the country's global reputation.
Political interference in administrative decisions across government and state-owned enterprises, particularly appointments, procurement, and financial management, creates a precarious environment, making even our most qualified professionals hesitant to serve.
Microsoft founder Bill Gates says that most of his fortune will be spent on improving health and education services in Africa over the next 20 years. Speaking in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, he also urged Africa's young innovators to think about how to build artificial intelligence to improve healthcare on the continent. Gates announced last month that he would give away 99% of his vast fortune, which he expects to reach $200 billion by 2045, by when his foundation planned to end its operations. Let's have a look at financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is at 1,000 naira 583, Botswana 13 pula 26, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 28, Zambia 26 kwacha 65. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 70, Russia 78 rubles 65, India 85 rupee 40, China 7 yuan 20, South Africa 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound, 87 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,362, platinum at $1,064 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $64.85 a barrel. That is all. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa, your voice, your sound, and your home. Stay logged right here. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Over 35 organizations are expected to converge at the Union buildings in Pretoria over illegal immigrants in South Africa. They say South Africa is facing a myriad of challenges and that foreign nationals are worsening the situation. Yes, Khutato, just take us through the main aims of the march, what you're hoping to get from them.
So we are basically saying to the President of the Republic of South Africa, illegal immigration is a pandemic. Implement the laws. It's not that we don't have these laws. How many people are being human trafficked? How many people are being hijacked? Our schools are full. Our hospitals are full. And it's almost as if we're carrying the burdens of the entire Africa at the expense of South Africans. And we are basically saying enough is enough. We want the President of the Republic of South Africa to meet us at the Union building. We've submitted letters to say that we are coming on this day. We want to meet with him there to give him this mandate because clearly he has failed citizens. He's failed South Africans by failing to implement the law. That's the most important thing. We are going to give you a mandate. We, the people, shall govern.
Africa Update with Lulu Gabu on Channel Africa every weekday from 12 to 2 p.m.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Révérend Dr Alain.
Je suis content, très heureux d'être de la partie ce soir et bonjour à tous nos auditeurs.
Je rappelle que pour les intimes, il vous appelle bien sûr BMB. Aujourd'hui, nous parlons courage sur Mix Vibration. Comment définissez-vous le terme courageux?
Ça vient du latin cor, qui veut tout simplement exprimer la bravoure, la force de l'âme ou encore la virilité, le héroïsme que quelqu'un peut avoir en face de difficultés, en face de problèmes, en face de défis.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Tamo kwa tulibwanji
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
The corruption case against South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, and French arms company, Thales, is back in the Pietermaritzburg High Court today. Judge Nkosinathi Chili has set it down as a holding date while he considers Thales' applications to be acquitted on all charges due to the death of key witnesses in their case. Zuma's legal team has brought a similar application, saying their right to cross-examine witnesses will also be affected. Zuma and Thales are facing charges of corruption, fraud, racketeering, and money laundering stemming from South Africa's multi-billion rand arms deal in 1999. We're joined on the line by legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala to talk further on this. Mpumelelo, thank you for joining us and welcome to Africa Rise and Shine on this Tuesday.
Good morning to you and also good morning to our viewers.
All right, Zuma is back in court this morning. What can we expect?
Basically, a holding date to test where the parties are in the different or respective applications that they are there. Remember, Mr. Zuma himself has made a number of appeals to the SCA and also to the Constitutional Court. And remember, there's also that outstanding ruling that would need to be delivered by Judge Chili of detailing. Do you give out an order that said the trial cannot move forward, or do you say the application is dismissed? So on today, then they'll be able to know and check how far are they in terms of their respective applications that they are there. And when you come back on the next day or the next occasion, are we able to start the trial, or is it another holding date to determine whether the parties are ready to proceed with the matter?
What is the likelihood of Taylor's application being granted with the explanation that 2 key witnesses have since died? And do you think they can have a fair trial if the 2 most important defense witnesses have died?
Well, it would depend, but the most important question would be what type of evidence was going to be led against you. Do you even know what the state is going to state? Have you experienced those difficulties? So that's the one thing in which maybe the court would like to err on the side of caution on, in terms of saying, well, I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt now because I haven't even heard whether those witnesses would have been credible witnesses, number one. Number two, would have they assisted the court in coming to a conclusion? So let's rather start the trial. Let me hear what the state is going to state. And if there are any difficulties that you are facing, it's only then you make your application or highlight to the court and say to the court, had it been that our witnesses were alive, they would have disputed whatever which is being stated here. So when you make your ruling at the end of the day, we want to rule this particular conduct as conduct in which would fall on the unfairness of the whole process. And the second part is this one. You can't wait up until the last minute before you make the application for unreasonable delay. It has to be done as soon as the delay has occurred. So Talis has stayed all this while, knowing very well that the matter will still be able to continue and did not complain, and only at this minute only raises this particular point. Also something that the court may also look at and say, I'd rather err on the side of caution. I want to hear the evidence, and after hearing that evidence, I'll be able to make a determination. But to rule that the evidence is not there from the instance is not a gamble that I'm prepared to take.
What would form alternatives now if you were the legal counsel for Thales in terms of the ability to cross-examine these two key witnesses that would be of equal value?
Well, it would be to provide documentary evidence that would have been there, which would be able to corroborate whatever is being stated. That would mean let's go back to the pre-trial conference again. Let's check whether any evidence can then be sourced. Or if there are any additional things in which you'd like to source, let's start there and see. Can you be able to provide that evidence? Is it going to assist me in the manner in which I want to render my trial? Other than that, it's a wait and see type of game in which you would have to wait up until the process is done, up until the witnesses actually come into the witness box, and then you'll be able to deal with it in that particular sense. But to simply want to rule it out from the instance is something which is impossible, and I don't think the judge or even the court would accede to that.
In April, Zuma's camp was awaiting Judge Qili's judgment in the former president's application for leave to appeal the ruling dismissing his request for Advocate Billy Downer's recusal. In your view, would the advocate's recusal contribute to a fair trial for Zuma?
No, not necessarily. Remember, a person who's at court is free to decide the strategies that they want to engage in. So if they want to have Advocate Billy Downer, then so be it. If there are any instances of unfairness that would have been raised, there's a very leading case of S versus Porridge that says you're not going to be able to win this particular from the first instance. But what you have to do is that during the trial, show instances in which the lines have been crossed, and show instances in which the crossing of that line is going to lead you to having an unfair trial. So the court is not saying to you, I'm simply shutting the door so that you are not able to raise evidence, but it says, for me to be able to decide this matter accurately, show me those finer details in which the law has been transgressed, and then maybe I can find in your favor if then I can see that an unfair trial has taken place. But to simply assume when there's no evidence that has been led, there's no indication of facts that can be adduced by the court to say that an unfair trial is going to be made, then the court will not allow it. So the chances of maybe even on appeal and even going up to the Constitutional Court, Zuma's applications being dismissed are very high.
The case has dragged for years. Mpumelelo, are there any signs to an end?
To be honest with you, I don't think so. When we first started with this matter, I'd said 5 years. And then even last year again, I said maybe 5 years before we even see the first witness going to the witness box. Because after this traversing to the Constitutional Court and coming back, Mr. Zuma still has other avenues that he can be able to raise. And if the matter is then continues despite whatever challenges are there, then it would mean a travesty in the manner in which we do things in our courts. So we may see maybe 5 years or maybe 3 years from now, the first witness going to the witness box. But that is if there are no any other pleas which are going to be raised by the former president.
All right. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you so much again for your time, Mpumelelo.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Great. Mpumelelo Zikalala is a legal analyst talking to us about the corruption case against former President Jacob Zuma and French arms company Thales. They are expected back in the Pietermaritzburg court, a high court rather, today.
All right, so fascinating. This court case has been running for decades, and each time that people think that this trial is going to start, an appeal is made. It goes to the High Court, to the Supreme Court, and then the Constitutional Court, and then it starts again. I do know that in law there comes a point in time where the courts have to decide that you've had enough appeals. You can't keep appealing. And I wonder at what point that the courts will decide with the Zuma case and the Thales case. because you can't appeal indefinitely. Some people will say that justice is not being served that way. But on the other hand, you also have to be careful that everyone who does appeal doesn't ever say that you did not afford me my full rights. So we'll see. But as he says, it's been 2 decades now. It's incredible.
Yeah, we're going to get to the news in just a bit. And on this 3rd of June, if it is your birthday, we just want to say shout out to you. A happy birthday to you. And you share a birthday with Raul Castro. He was born in 1931, this day, Cuban revolutionary, politician, and brother of Fidel Castro. Just shifting gears a little bit there from heavy topics to saying happy birthday to you if it's your birthday. Also, Josephine Baker was born on this day in 1906, American song and dance review artist, actress, and civil rights activist.
Still with history, 1962, a ceasefire agreement leading to independence held in Algeria. Yeah, although the Avian Accords that ended the Algerian War of Independence were actually signed in March 1962, by June the 3rd, most of the French forces had begun withdrawing and the ceasefire was broadly holding, and this marked a turning point ahead of Algeria's formal independence declaration on the 5th of July 1962. And what was happening here in South Africa? Well, on the 3rd of June, the apartheid government in South Africa reimposed nationwide state of emergency. So that's a look at history. But coming up in the next hour, right here on Rise and Shine, the South African Communist Party, a long-time ally of the ANC, looks like it's going it alone at the polls.
Let's get our news first as we get into that story and more in this 3rd and final hour of Africa Rise and Shine. Here's Onele Nzinzi. After her will be Musibudi Makura with your sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Reports have emerged that Sudanese army warplanes killed or injured at least 89 people on Sunday in El Koma in North Darfur. Local emergency services said the airstrikes targeted a busy market in the town controlled by the paramilitary rapid support forces. The attack marks the resumption of the army's air operations in the region. A Kenyan activist has accused the authorities in Tanzania of abducting him and inflicting sexual torture and violence before they deported him back to Kenya. Speaking to the media, Boniface Mwangi gave a tearful account of repeated abuse by security forces in Dar es Salaam last month.
Some guy came who said he was from the state office or state security, and he started beating me up. I was being beaten at the presence of my lawyers and Agatha. He started calling me saying that I'm an inmate, I'm coming to destroy their country, and I'm a problem, they're going to teach me a lesson. And then he said that we're under arrest.
Militants linked to Al-Qaeda say they have attacked the Malayan army in the city of Timbuktu. The extremist group says it has been shelling Malayan army bases in the city, including the military airport. More than 400 soldiers have reportedly been killed by insurgents since the start of May in bases in towns in Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. The BBC's Simon Ponsford.
It's the latest sign of collapsing security in Mali and the wider Sahel region. Militants say they've targeted Malian soldiers in Timbuktu. Residents have reported hearing gunfire and explosions. The historic city, one of the UN's World Heritage Sites, has been under siege in recent years. In 2012, it was captured by Tuareg fighters. French forces eventually drove them out. But violence in Mali and neighbouring countries has kept on rising, and millions of people have been displaced.
South Africa's Umkhonto Sizwe Party's political party's bid to revive its efforts to nullify the 2024 May polls has been postponed until further notice. The leave to appeal application was set to be heard in the electoral court sitting in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg today. However, the MK party filed an application for postponement of proceedings indefinitely. Kenny Mapanga reports.
This is to afford the MK party the opportunity to launch an appeal against the May 2025 Electoral Court order dismissing the MK's application for the discovery of documents from the Electoral Commission of South Africa. These are documents which the MKP believes are necessary for the adjudication of their main application, their third bid aimed at invalidating the landmark 2024 national and provincial election results.
Lastly, Russia has rejected a Ukrainian demand for an unconditional 3-month ceasefire at the second round of direct talks held in Istanbul. Russia's chief negotiator said it had instead proposed a 2 to 3 days partial truce. The two sides have agreed to swap more prisoners of war. Ukraine is calling for a meeting this month between President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Vladimir Putin, and possibly attended by US President Donald Trump. The BBC's Hugo Pacheco.
What the Ukrainians have been saying is that, look, Russia is not really interested in pausing the conflict. It's not really interested in ending the war. The Russians have actually intensified their airstrikes on Ukraine in recent weeks. The Ukrainian officials are also saying that Russia is indicating that it is planning a summer offensive to perhaps try to seize more Ukrainian territories.
Now, for any news stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Proteas explosive bat as well as wicketkeeper Andre Klaassen announces his immediate retirement from international cricket, while French wildcard Louis Boisson shocks the world number 3 Jessica Pegula at Roland Garros. Details of these and other stories at 8:30.
Channel Africa, your voice, your sound, and your home. Stay logged right here. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
And we love hearing from you, your comments or your questions in terms of our programming on Rise and Shine. Our handles are at Channel Africa 1 on the different social media platforms. So Chenge Joseph did just that, getting in touch. Thank you very much on Facebook. The comment is streaming live from Cabanas, Nairobi. You are always approaching political commentary without personal bias or preconceived notions. Well, thank you for tuning in, Chenge, and keep tuning in and stay with Channel Africa.
Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 926, and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Time now to turn our attention to political developments in South Africa. The South African Communist Party, the SACP, a long-standing ally and a partner of the ruling African National Congress, the ANC, has announced that its intention to contest the 2026 local government elections independently. Now, the SACP's General Secretary Solima Paila said that the time had come for the party to assert its identity and reaffirm its ideological stance against capitalism. The decision raises important questions, though, about the future of the tripartite alliance, which has for decades united the ANC, the SACP, as well as the Congress for South African Trade Unions, COSATU. Well, joining us now to explore this development, we're now joined by a party Central Committee member, Dr. Alex Mashilo. Always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Greetings, Peter, to you and to the producer, as well as to the listeners.
Right, so this isn't the first time that we've heard talk of the South African Communist Party mooting the idea of attending or contesting elections independently. What's different now, and is this really the moment?
What happened is that from 2007, the SACP adopted a resolution that we needed changes in the way our ANC-led alliance is functioning so that we can improve its impact. Among other things that the SACP pointed out is that there are two primary political formations within the alliance, being the ANC and the SACP. The other one is a progressive trade union movement, and the fourth one, which came in the early 1990s, progressive civic movement. Now, when you look at development in local councils, provincial legislative bodies, and in parliament, the voice that you hear is only the voice of the ANC. Now, where there are different positions on the same matter, the voice of the ANC takes precedence, regardless of the existence of a different voice from within the alliance. So we needed a mechanism to handle situations like that one. However, in other situations, there was just no consultation towards decision making at all. We, as members of the alliance, will just see the ANC pursuing this or that direction without consultation. So what we said is that we need, as part of the mechanism to improve how the alliance functions, which we called alliance reconfiguration, a situation where the alliance is characterized by, among others, a democratic consensus-seeking consultation process and collective accountability on what has brought us together. These are among the key principles we outlined, in addition to the fact that insofar as the policies we are driving are concerned, must all lead us towards the achievement of the goals of the Freedom Charter. And in this period, particularly the economic goals of the Freedom Charter. But now, 17 years progress of the alliance, to a point the rank and file of the SACP no longer really tolerated the idea that the alliance will one day reconfigure, and they decided that the SACP must go to the ballot plus. And it is the only primary political formation that can advance socialist measures during electoral campaigns and speak out in advancing the same measures in local councils, provincial legislative, and in parliament.
Was the final nail in the coffin the GNU coming into being and the ANC losing its majority in parliament?
Not necessarily. The to contest elections finally was influenced by two national congresses of the SACP. The last one was held in 2022, and before then, 5 years being the preceding one. The reason why there were changes and decisions to give the resolution a chance was because there were engagements within the alliance. But in 2019, a document was adopted by all alliance partners, which we called the Common Reconfiguration Document. Despite the adoption of that document, there were major reversals. Alliance partners did not agree on a common document, and those reversals led to a situation where there was no progress at all. In fact, the decision to contest election would have been implemented in 2024 elections. However, what happened is that there were just too many new political parties, and these political parties were supported by capital or the dominant sections of capital with money. And the SACP decided that no, let us stand behind the ANC, let us support the ANC while we are analyzing the impact of this fragmentation. So that's what happened, and as a result of that, the date to implement the electoral contestation was shifted to 2026 local government election.
So, an interesting dimension now happens is that you are now competing against somebody who is an ally. Does that mean that the tripartite alliance cannot hold still?
It will be unfair to single out the ANC and say we are competing against the ANC, because there are many parties contesting elections. Secondly, the fact that the SACP did not contest elections from 1994 is that we were reserving the exercise of a political right we fought for, which we wrote in the Freedom Charter. And the reservation of this right was not a timeless decision. It was a decision informed by strategy and tactics and an analysis of the situation, which we call analytical alertness, tactical flexibility, and strategic consistency. Now, this alliance was not formed on the basis that the SACP is going to not exercise all its rights permanently, but will support the ANC. It is not like that. So what happens is that the SACP will be exercising its rights to contest elections. And we can't say we are contesting the ANC. What we are contesting are elections, like all other parties, and the ANC included will be contesting the elections. It is a matter of a political right we fought for based on the Freedom Charter and ensured that it is enshrined in our Constitution so that we can use the exercise of this right to pursue our historical mission. Because remember that the ANC, almost every president of the ANC has come out to say that the ANC is not a socialist movement. Also, they never came out to say that it is neither a capitalist movement. But as things stand, within the alliance, the only political party that can put forward socialist measures and campaign on the basis of building widespread working class socialist revolutionary consciousness is the SACP, and not doing so disadvantages the working class.
Where does this leave some of your senior leaders who are dual members of the South African Communist Party as well as the ANC? Who do they campaign for?
I am one of the SACP members who is also a member of the ANC at the same time. In fact, I was recruited to the ANC by the Communist Party because the organizing strategy of the Communist Party was that its members must also belong to the ANC, in line with, as part of its interpretation of a crucial section in the manifesto of the Communist Party. But the decision was not that belonging to the ANC must compromise the socialist historic mission of the SACP. Now, this decision cannot be left to individual members to make how they will handle the situation. The SACP, the ANC, and other alliance partners still need to engage to say we are still allies. The fact that the SACP will now be contesting elections doesn't mean that the alliance is over, because this alliance was not established on the basis of elections. It was established on the basis of a program that goes far beyond elections. Now, the alliance has to engage and say, how are we collectively going to be handling this? Because it is clearly one way in which, whether we like it or not, the alliance will be reconfigured.
All right, so maybe let me ask you directly then. On election day, right now, do you know who you will be voting for on the ballot paper where the ANC and the SACP appear?
No, there is no election day right now, and obviously there is still time for us to engage until 2026. When that time comes, I will definitely make it clear. But I cannot belong to the SACP, speak for the resolutions of the SACP for so many years, and when it's time to implement a program, not follow the collective guidance of the SACP. But this collective guidance of the SACP will be guidance based on the state of the alliance and engagement within the alliance, affording other alliance partners an opportunity to say something. Who knows that at the end of the day it will be a collective direction, because the SACP and the ANC, whether we like it or not, will still meet each other post-elections. And we cannot handle this situation as if we will not meet one another. Think about the current situation of the GNU that you referred to. Will this not be better if the SACP had contested elections, performed well, and goes hand in hand with the ANC to advance what unites the movement, unlike the disputes that we have seen? For example, when we talk about the budget, the differences that emerged in February were welcomed by the leaders of the GNU, who asserted that this was how the GNU was hard at work. They said the GNU was working, but in the end, they all didn't want it because it stalled progress. As we speak, the budget was not adopted. The day before tomorrow, a certain fuel levy has to be implemented, and certain processes had not been undertaken. So is it not better for alliance partners to agree on a collective strategy of how to work together both inside and outside the electoral terrain?
So another way to look at it, though, Dr. Mashilo, is to say 1994, it was just the ANC. And what's happened to fast forward to today, a lot of parties have been formed out of the ANC, splitting from the ANC. Is this not a de facto split as well? In other words, the ANC is going to lose even more votes, which now go to the South African Communist Party. Doesn't that make the situation worse rather than better?
Of course, there were other parties formed outside from within the ANC, but also from other political parties as well. It has been a process of what in my academic language I referred to as a general decomposition of unity. And it doesn't affect political parties if you really look at the sociology of the South African society. I mean, churches, for every church there is an additional or even more other churches. You go to burial societies. This is a society-wide process that doesn't take place only in politics. But to answer your question more directly, there was never a point where any of the existing political parties were independent parties before. The SACP, the roots of the SACP date back to 1915. in a collective called the War on War League, and fast forward to 1916 in what was called the International Socialist League, and regional organizations across South Africa, which consolidated into a union called the Communist Party in 1921. All along, the ANC and the SACP were alliance partners, and that started in 1928, 1929. The fact that we were alliance partners did not mean we are not independent organizations. On the contrary, we were independent organizations, and because of that, we had to be alliance partners.
That is well understood, but in reality, the people who will now vote for the South African Communist Party most likely voted ANC in past elections. That's going to change, which means the ANC is going to lose those votes. It may be that you won't get a majority votes yourself, which means, again, a dilution of control, particularly in the local government elections in some of the municipalities.
No, and yes, there are different processes. Firstly, if you look at the election results in South Africa, there has been a growing population of people who registered to vote, but increasingly never turned out to vote. A growing number. In the 2024 elections, that number was the highest when compared to all other elections. So one way to look at what you are suggesting would be these people are disillusioned, but they do not see any alternative on the ballot. Wouldn't it be, is it not better that the SACP is standing for elections? Perhaps that can make it their alternative, and we can see a return of more and more people who decided not to vote previously coming back to vote for the SACP. There will be a general impact not only on a single political party, but across the political party spectrum. Some people have decided to vote for the splinters that left the ANC because they had no alternative. The Communist Party was not standing for elections. Is the Communist Party standing for elections, not offering them an opportunity they were looking for? It could be that the answer is a big yes.
All right. So, again, historically, the alliance made a lot of sense. Common enemy, common goals going forward. 2025 now we're in. Is the ANC still aligned in terms of political policy outlook with the SACP? Because you're talking about reaffirming your anti-capitalist stance and asserting your independence. Are you still aligned in the true sense of the word?
There has always been an intersection in the historical missions and strategic objectives of the ANC and the SACP. If you may allow me to retreat into my mathematics at high school and in engineering studies, when you draw two cycles that have an intersection, they share a common area through the intersection. But there are certain items that are not in the intersection. They are outside the intersections, but in the respective two cycles.
Okay.
Now, the fact that you share a common historical mission and strategic objectives that are inside the intersection doesn't mean that you must abandon those items that are not covered in the intersection. For example, the ANC, as its leaders have said, wouldn't go out to lead the struggle for socialism through an electoral campaign, for instance. That means that the struggle to fight for socialist measures is not inside the intersection. That historical mission and its strategic objectives belong to the Communist Party to drive. So the question is, how does the Communist Party drive
that historical mission and its strategic objectives on the electoral terrain if the ANC is not carrying those. So there has always been an area of intersection and other items that are outside that area of intersection. And insofar as the items that lie outside of the area of intersection are concerned, each alliance partner must reserve the independent right to pursue that struggle. Because if you don't pursue that struggle, you will be narrowing your historical mission only to the shared objectives. And in that way, you may be on a path to self-liquidation. So the SACP must avoid that.
Are you not fearful that in asserting your independence and moving into your own space when it comes to elections, that you may actually find yourself weaker and losing votes rather than getting bigger?
There are possibilities. There are possibilities that the SACP may become bigger. There are also possibilities that it may become smaller. And there are lessons to learn from the possibilities that will take precedence. Because in the end, it is the SACP's historical mission to lead, to build itself, to lead the struggle for socialism on all key sides of the struggle, including the electoral terrain. So you cannot say we are an organization that stands for the socialist mission of the working class. However, we are going to permanently not represent this mission on the electoral terrain. You must enter the electoral terrain as your members have decided because it is their decision. If you don't receive enough votes, you must go back to study the elections to improve your performance. That's what elections are about. So you cannot say we are not going forward. You must go forward when the time has come. And the reality is that we have had differences. You can go back to the adoption of neoliberal policies such as GIA and subsequent policies. The fact is that the central thrust of South Africa's economic policy direction has taken a path that even opposes some of the Freedom Charter's fundamental tenets. If I may give you an example, what does the Freedom Charter say about sectors that were considered to be monopoly? It said that they must belong to the state. The fundamental direction that has unfolded comprises, for example, in the unbundling of those sectors. Take energy, for example. It has been unbundled from a situation where energy was provided by the state through the productive capacity of the state owned by Eskom, to a point where if the so-called just energy transition plan is implemented, and that is if the timetable to decommission Eskom power station is followed to the letter, you will have a situation where by 2050 the state will be left with only 2 power stations, Medupi and Kusile, and some 2 units at Camden or elsewhere,
Right.
and the rest of the power will be coming from the private sector. Is that what the Freedom Charter is saying? And if that is not what the Freedom Charter is saying, why don't you take the responsibility to pursue what the
Right.
Freedom Charter is saying on the electoral terrain?
Dr. Mashilo, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for explaining your party's position going forward. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's South African Communist Party Central Committee member, Dr. Alex Mashilo, talking to us about how the party has now decided it's time for it to have its own space on the ballot sheets and will be contesting independently of the ANC in the future. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Onelen Sinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Human Rights Watch has accused the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo of executing at least 21 civilians over 2 days in February in the eastern city of Goma. In a report published yesterday, the international non-governmental organization offers a snapshot of violence during the latest escalation of the decade-long conflict. Reports have emerged that Sudanese army warplanes killed or injured at least 89 people on Sunday in Al Koma in North Darfur. The attack marks the resumption of the army's air operations in the region. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he expects his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to impose further sanctions on Russia. His statement comes after a second round of direct talks between Ukraine and Russia in Turkey failed to resolve the issue of a ceasefire. Channel Africa News, I am Onele Ntsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 Central African Time on Channel Africa.
And now it's time for our sports news. Here's Musibudi Makura with the details.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. So Nigeria's Kano State declared Monday a day of mourning after 22 people died in a road accident while returning from a sports festival in the southwest of the country. Now, athletes, coaches, officials, medical staff, as well as a journalist were among the fatalities when a state bus carrying the team veered off the road and overturned around the town of Dakasala, approximately 40 kilometers from Kanu on Saturday. A further 9 people were injured in the accident, with one person travelling on the bus having not sustained any injuries. Now, the contingent was making a journey of over 1,000 kilometres back from the National Sports Festival in Ogun State, which had concluded on Friday. Sheku Deku, who's the chairperson of the Nigerian Sports Commission, said the accident marked a very sad day in Nigerian sports. Now, the National Sports Festival, which marked its 22nd edition this year, is a key event in Nigeria's sporting calendar and is also aimed at promoting unity, youth engagement, as well as national development through athletics. The accident has cast also a shadow over what had been a successful competition for Kano State, with the team also collecting a total of 29 medals. BBC Sport Africa understands that some of the state's medals winners were also a part of those deceased. Back home now, Henrik Claassen has announced his immediate retirement from international cricket, bringing an end to a distinguished 7-year career. Well, the Proteas men's side, the 33-year-old, announcing on Monday that he would be stepping away from the white ball formats, which follows his retirement, of course, from red ball cricket in 2024. Claassen made his one-day international as well as T20 international debuts back in 2018 and went on to establish himself as one of the most destructive white ball players of his generation. He also played 60 one-day internationals as well as amassed over 2,000 runs at an average of just under 44 in the middle order. His power-hitting prowess was also full on display during a blistering career, a best of 174 against Australia at his home ground, Supersport Park in 2023, the second highest score ever recorded by a number 5. Renowned for his dominance against spin, Claassen also represented South Africa in 58 T20 internationals, a striking rate of 141.84. His ability to take on bowling attacks also with calculated aggression made him a mainstay in South Africa's limited overs set-up cricket. Onto this now, South African ultramarathon star Gert de Steen has her sights set on completing the coveted Comrades Marathon as well as the Two Oceans Double Marathon this year, having already claimed her 5th straight Two Oceans Marathon title in Cape Town in April of this year. Steen is now aiming to secure her 3rd consecutive 4th overall Comrades title in the 89-kilometre Comrades Down Run that is set for this coming Sunday. She believes she's in strong form to do the double this weekend.
I have certainly got my eyes on the Two Oceans and Comrades double this year. It has been my goal from the start of the year. It's what I've been training for. So, yes, 100% that is the goal.
On to tennis news now. World number 361 Louise Bosson pulled off the biggest shock of this year's French Open with a stunning fourth-round victory against third seed Jessica Pegula. The French player given a wild card into the main draw after tearing an ACL in her knee just last year came through 3-6, 6-4, 6-4 against the US Open runner-up. Bosson is making her debut in the main draw of a Grand Slam and had never played an opponent ranked in the world's top 50 this week. The 22-year-old had to starve off 4 break points as she served for the match, leading 5-4 in the third set before sealing a victory with a thumping forehand winner. This was her reaction after that win, moving into the quarterfinals of her first ever Grand Slam tournament.
Yeah, from the beginning I trust in myself, but for sure when she won the first set was a little bit down for me, but when I came back and won the second set, I start to really think about it. But I also stay in my gameplay and don't try to think a lot about it.
Right, so that's right from the sports desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you'll be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
8:40 Central Africa Time. It's time for your business news. Here's Chanduko Legege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. The Mozambican government has threatened to cut ties with doctors employed on a contract basis if they continue to be on strike. Over 100 doctors at the Maputo Central Hospital have embarked on a strike, raising concerns such as non-payment for overtime, night and weekend shifts, including other unfair working conditions. In the past few months, there has been reports of shortage of food and medicine for patients and a lack of resources for doctors working in the emergency unit. Channel Africa's correspondent in Maputo, Milton Malulek, explains.
And the doctors now are saying that we are tired of being blamed because they're saying that we made, actually we swear like we will be there to help and save people, but doesn't mean that we work under poor conditions because they don't have some equipments like gloves to protect themselves. They'll find sometimes in the emergency sector that they don't have those means.
A Malian court has adjourned to Thursday a hearing on whether to put Barrick Mining's Lolo Gonkoto Gold Complex under provisional administration. Granting the request would represent a major escalation for a dispute between the West African country and the Canadian miner after operations at the complex were suspended in January in a dispute over taxes and ownership. Barrick Mining, previously called Barrick Gold, and Mali's military-led government have been at odds since 2023 over the implementation of a new mining code that raises taxes and gives Mali's government a greater share in the gold mines. Botswana will cut its 2025 economic growth forecast to almost zero due to a prolonged downturn in the global diamond industry, with a budget deficit also seen widening due to reduced diamond revenue. Botswana is the world's leading producer of diamonds by value, and its economy largely depends on diamond exports, which normally contribute around 30% of national revenues and 75% of foreign exchange receipts. In the 2025 budget announced in February, Finance Minister Ndaba Haulati had projected 3.3% growth this year based on an expected rebound in the diamond market. The economic freedom fighters said South African Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana took an incorrect approach in his decision to propose an increase in the general fuel levy. The Western Cape High Court will today hear the party's application against the increase. Godongwana announced the increase when he tabled a third revised budget in Parliament last month. The increase is due to take effect tomorrow. Umpile Mautwe is EFF MP.
Yes, we are vehemently rejecting the fuel levy increase, and our reasoning is very simple. It's a regressive tax. But also, the minister is relying on wrong judgment. So the fuel levy is not a regulatory or an administrative issue. It is a tax issue, and it's a tax of a general application. Doesn't check whether you are rich or you are poor, you are wealthy or not.
Meanwhile, the organization Undoing Tax Abuse Outer says the EFF's case against an increase in the general fuel levy is not strong. Outer CEO Wayne Duvenage.
I don't think the EFF's case is a strong one, and by saying that, we're not advocating that the fuel levy should go up, but it is one of the mechanisms available to the Minister of Finance, which he has every right to do as he balances the books, and he's been very good, I think, in the last 3 years by not increasing it. So going up 16 cents as a reprieve or as an alternative to putting the VAT increase up by 0.5%, we believe is the lesser of two evils.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 583, Botswana 13.26, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shilling 28, Zambia 26 kwacha 65. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 70, Russia 78 rubles 65, India 85 rupee 40, China 71.20, South Africa 17 rand 89 cents. $1 is at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $3,358, platinum at $1,063 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $64.82 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126, and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with a community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Channel Africa, your voice, your sound, and your home. Stay logged right here. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
As South Africa approaches the one-year anniversary of the Khayelitsha barbershop killings on 8 June and the first anniversary of Dorcas Lekhanyane's tragic death on 11 July, the slow pace of justice remains a painful reality for many families. This is according to Action Society's Action Centre, a civil society organization in the country. Courtroom delays, unexplained postponements, and systemic backlogs continue to cast long shadows over the pursuit of accountability. For more on this, we're joined on the line by Kaylin Palm, head at Action Society's Action Centre. Kaylin, thank you for making time for us and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about the cases. In the Khayelitsha barbershop killings of 8 June, 3 children were left dead, one 30-year-old man as well. 11 counts were of attempted murder in that case. What is behind the slow pace in seeking legal redress? As much as we mentioned some issues, what are others that you are aware of?
Look, there are a number of issues arising when it comes to the court system in South Africa, specifically in the area that I work, which is in the Cape Town area. So we're looking at Mitchell's Plain, Khayelitsha Court, Balvo Court, Wynberg Court. So there are a range of issues that I encounter, or the families that encounter throughout the last 3 years, and these range. It's basically faulty equipment, stolen equipment. I mean, in the barbershop killing. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. In the barbershop killing, there's been issues such as stolen equipment at Khayelitsha Court, specifically in the sexual offences courtroom. So there are a range of issues that frustrate not only us as Action Society, but as families as well. We're all looking at DNA delays as well. Court cases are being postponed because of delays in the DNA processing. And then we're still looking at like full court rolls as well at various courts. Some cases aren't being able to be heard because of full court rolls as well.
In the Khayelitsha barbershop incident, 6 people were arrested and the 2 main suspects were in possession of firearms, it was reported. The concern was that they should not be released on bail, as this will cause fear in the community and lead to even more murders. If they could shoot at 15 people, innocent people at that, without hesitation, of course, there would be fears. What are the consequences of these delays for the communities that are affected in the courts?
Look, in the barbershop shooting, the 2 suspects, they were released on bail. And that actually came as a surprise and shocking for us because of the magnitude of the case itself. So we were taken aback by them receiving bail at the time. What it means for communities, organizations, and myself and you, what it means that we can't sort of trust the system to be on our side if we are victims of crime. It creates a distrust between myself, organizations, or people in general, communities, that the system will take us seriously. If so happens that we do experience some sort of crime against us. So for us, especially the barbershop shooting, there were children involved, so it just leaves a bitter taste, but also a very concerning attitude for us.
Yes, as you say, I mean, these systemic backlogs do end up casting doubt and long shadows over the pursuit of accountability. What urgent action is needed to address the inefficiencies that leave thousands of people and their families trapped in legal limbo?
Look, fix what's wrong, fix what is broken. As I said, we have full court rolls, we have police officers who are not doing a great job when it comes to investigations. I mean, it is simple. If a police officer is doing a great job on the ground, investigating the crime, he then gives that docket to the prosecutor. That prosecutor then works with what she has. Right? So if that is not being sort of fixed or done properly, how do we expect a proper conviction? So that needs to be fixed. Firstly, we need our cops to be, and we understand that they are overworked. We understand that they are sitting with up to 300 to 400 dockets on their desk to investigate. And we know that it's humanly impossible to investigate 300 to 500 cases and do it properly. So that needs to be fixed. We need our officers to be not overworked and underpaid, but also they need the proper resources and time to investigate a case properly. The DNA delays, we feel that the state needs to have a sort of a private partnership with private companies in order to process DNA samples, because people are waiting up to 6 months to a year to have DNA samples come back to court and then have it sorted out now that the case can continue. Faulty equipment, I mean, that's self-explanatory. Just fix the equipment and fix it in good time. Have a proper timeline in order to fix equipment at court. Stolen equipment, again, at Khayelitsha, we are waiting now 3 months for stolen equipment to be replaced at Khayelitsha court. So, yes, in my opinion, just fix what's broken, work with organizations, work with private partnerships, and hopefully we can see some sort of justice in these cases, and we're not waiting up to 3 to 4, 5 years for a case to conclude.
In the case... Yeah, no problem there. I think he's also just adding on to what we're talking about. In the case of scientist Dorcas Lekhanyage's tragic death at the hands of her husband, previous incidents of abuse had been reported in that situation. This concerning trend has unfortunately become a common experience for South African women. Do protection orders even offer the protection they are meant to be offering?
It's supposed to. It is supposed to offer the protection that you need if you feel that your life is being threatened. It is supposed to, but unfortunately, we live in a society where it is not happening. It is not happening because the response time and again, I speak to other cases that we're dealing with. The response time to a protection order it's quite long. You wait long for a cop to pitch up to assist you if your protection order is being breached. So it is supposed to work, and we are encouraging and we urging government to or the state or whoever is empowered to look into that. How strong is our protection orders these days in order to protect women and children? So in this particular case with Didi, well, clearly it wasn't taken seriously enough, and we support the family in this case. I mean, I'm not physically in court because I'm based in Cape Town, but our Gauteng colleagues are keeping an eye on this, and we hope that now that it's moved to the High Court, that it moves faster. We do know that it was in the Magistrates Court, but now at the High Court, we're hoping that the case moves faster.
And then in other cases, we know it's a one-time attack that ends up in a fatality of a woman, and the life of a woman is lost. We currently have a case in the country where a woman died after going on a date, and allegations of women being targeted at shopping malls. The suspect, who was later killed by police, had 20 previous cases against him. What does this say in terms of, do we have an effectively trained law enforcement for violence against women?
It's highly ridiculous. I mean, the stats that just came out from the minister, it just shows the high number of people being killed in our country. I don't think enough is being done. I think that more needs to be done in terms of keeping our women and children safe in our country. It's just ridiculous that women are being targeted in our country, and at a very, very high rate. So it also points to our justice system. If people are punished at a quicker rate and at a more strict, or if someone gets life imprisonment for a particular crime involving women, surely it will hopefully deter someone else from doing the same sort of thing. So I just think that we need to have more stricter laws in our country in order, hopefully, to deter people from killing us as
Kaylin,
women.
thank you so much. We'll leave it there. Please continue doing the work as you do at Action Society's Action Center. We need your inputs into our society in tackling these problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Kaylin Palm, as well as her furry friend, joining us there at Action Society's Action Center, discussing it's been a year, or over a year. It's the first anniversary of the murder of Dorcas Lekanyane, as well as the Khayelitsha barbershop killings on 8 June. What are we doing? Where are we going? Well, we'll leave it there for now in terms of our coverage on news on Rise and Shine, and we move forward to looking into what's coming up on The Move. Good morning, Benji.
Oh, man, that's such a sad interview, isn't it? These things keep going on. Very sad.
Yeah.
Like you can't just segue really into something else. It's very difficult, isn't it?
No, it is. It's a hard one. And what's even sadder is that because it's happened so often, we almost have become numb to the horror of it.
Yeah.
And that is a sad indictment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's swiftly move on, and noting that we're not diminishing the value of that conversation, which was a very important one. Today we're going to be speaking about office gossip.
Oh, gosh. My babu.
Which happens everywhere.
And stay away from office politics. I don't know if we have the indulgence to get into office politics, because we get into office spaces in and out, and we never really residentials, right?
We're not a 9 to 5 people.
We do really.
You can't escape it.
Oh no, we definitely get involved, but it's not as deeply entrenched as those who are 9 to 5ers. And I'm glad for that. I'm happy for that.
So we're going to be speaking a little bit about that. How do you get away from it? How do you navigate yourself out of that kind of conversation? Because some of those conversations just come to you, right?
Yes.
Even if you don't ask for them, they're just like, hey, this is what happened. Did you see that?
If you're quiet in the group, they say, that
one is
exactly.
Well, are you speaking to a psychologist to speak tips?
No, we're going to speak to an HR specialist, because I think they know the politics of the office, and sometimes they have office politics that they have to actually deal with and engage in terms of mediating, right? So we'll find out a little bit about that, because and
they probably need a bit of therapy training themselves, the HR consultants too.
I can't wait to hear that one. But that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Rise and Shine. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and let's do it again tomorrow, bright and early, 6 a.m. Central African Time.
For me, Asanda, Beda.
And me, Peter Ndoro. Have an awesome day.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And we take a look at your top stories this hour. The M23 rebels accused of executing at least 21 civilians over 2 days in the DRC. And voting is underway in South Korea in a snap presidential election. Your latest news. Greetings to our listeners. Human Rights Watch has accused the M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo of executing at least 21 civilians over 2 days in February in the eastern city of Goma. In a report published yesterday, the international non-governmental organization offers a snapshot of the violence during the latest escalation of the decades-long conflict. It says the 21 slain civilians include 6 men and 1 woman who were shot in the head near Katindo military camp in Goma on the 22nd of February. The report also called for commanders and combatants who directly ordered or carried out abuses to be